Most people respond to evil in three harmful ways: by becoming equally cruel, by endlessly playing the victim, or by outright denying that evil exists. Yet Carl Jung identified a fourth approach, one that not only shields us from the malice of others, but also helps us grow into stronger, more complete individuals. This approach is the only truly effective way to confront cruelty without compromising our core values, without becoming what we detest, and without allowing someone else's evil to define us. In this video, I will explain exactly how this psychological reaction to evil works. You'll discover why certain people are repeatedly targeted by cruelty, and most importantly, I'll guide you through the method Jung developed to turn these encounters into opportunities for growth and inner resilience. Stay tuned until the end. It could be the moment you finally learn the most effective way to navigate human cruelty. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. To begin, we must understand what really happens when we face another's malevolence. Jung observed that true evil isn't merely the absence of good. It is an active, deliberate force intent on harming, controlling, and causing suffering. It's crucial to differentiate between harmful behaviors born of pain, ignorance or immaturity, and genuine evil, which is calculated, intentional, and often cruel. When confronted with a truly malevolent person, a specific sequence unfolds in the psyche. Initially, there is shock, a disbelief that someone could act with such conscious destructiveness. Confusion follows, as the mind searches for rational explanations for actions that defy our basic understanding of humanity. Finally, a profound sense of threat emerges, not only physical but existential, as if the very core of our being is under attack. Jung emphasized that this process is not merely psychological, it is archetypal. Facing evil in another person brings us into direct contact with the collective shadow, the darkest aspects of humanity we prefer to ignore. This encounter awakens fear, but also stirs our personal shadow, the destructive impulses we normally keep suppressed. These impulses can surface when confronted with true evil. This explains why many people feel drawn to respond to genuine evil with cruelty, not because they are inherently bad, but because the presence of evil activates the darker parts of their own psyche. It's as if evil has a contagious quality, capable of influencing even its initial victims. Jung warned that this is one of the most dangerous aspects of encountering evil. Its power to awaken and corrupt the good by exposing the shadows we usually keep hidden. The second common reaction is permanent victimization, where a person becomes so deeply attached to the victim role that they lose the ability to respond actively. They become trapped, not only by the harm they suffered, but also by their own interpretation of it. Jung noted that when someone fixes themselves in this role, they essentially surrender their personal power to the aggressor, allowing the influence of evil to persist even when the original perpetrator is absent. The third reaction is denial, in which the individual refuses to acknowledge the reality of genuine evil, attempting instead to rationalize or downplay clearly destructive actions. This response occurs because accepting the existence of evil forces a confrontation with uncomfortable truths about human nature that people often prefer to avoid. Denial, however, is equally dangerous, leaving a person vulnerable to future encounters with malevolent individuals. None of these three reactions provide an effective solution. The first transforms you into what you oppose. The second renders you indefinitely paralyzed. The third leaves you defenseless. Jung proposed a fourth approach, more complex but far more effective: the conscious integration of encounters with evil as part of the individuation process. This method begins by acknowledging that facing evil, no matter how painful, offers an opportunity to understand deep aspects of human nature that typically remain hidden. Confronting evil allows us to appreciate the value of good, not as an abstract idea, but as a conscious, deliberate choice. Jung observed that those who have never faced real evil often develop a naive, fragile form of goodness that collapses upon encountering true cruelty. Conversely, individuals who confront evil consciously, without succumbing to it, cultivate a mature and resilient form of goodness, one that recognizes darkness, yet chooses light deliberately. This transformation does not occur automatically. It requires a deliberate psychological effort that Jung called opus contra naturam, or the work against nature, because it goes against instinctive impulses of fight, flight, or freeze. The process demands courage, discernment, and above all, the ability to maintain integrity even when confronted by forces seeking to destroy it. Before mastering this process, however, it is essential to understand why some individuals repeatedly become targets of malevolent behavior, while others seem naturally shielded from such experiences. Carl Jung identified a striking pattern among individuals who repeatedly become targets of harm. These people share a distinct mix of psychological traits that make them both appealing and vulnerable to malicious individuals. Recognizing this dynamic is key to breaking the cycle of repeated victimization. The first trait Jung highlighted is a highly developed feeling function. Such individuals experience their own emotions intensely, as well as those of others. Their natural empathy allows them to sense pain, need, and suffering instinctively. While this sensitivity is valuable, it also makes them noticeable to emotional predators who can exploit this openness. People with this trait often assume that others share their capacity for care, projecting their own humanity onto individuals who may be fundamentally different. This projection leaves them vulnerable because they struggle to foresee actions that fall outside their own emotional range. The second trait is an exaggerated sense of responsibility. These individuals often take responsibility not just for their actions, but also for the feelings and reactions of others. When mistreated, their first instinct is to question what they did wrong or what personal flaw triggered the behavior. This tendency towards self-blame signals manipulators and abusers who quickly learn to exploit it. Jung noted that this hyper-responsibility often originates in childhood, where assuming blame for adult problems was a survival strategy. What once protected them now becomes a vulnerability, allowing others to offload responsibility for destructive behaviors. The third trait is an unconscious drive to prove worth through caring for and healing others. These people are naturally drawn to those who appear wounded or misunderstood. They often define themselves by their ability to help and understand, seeing themselves as indispensable in others' lives. Although this motivation is noble, it places them in the path of those skilled at exploiting such instincts. Malevolent individuals can present a distorted vulnerability that triggers the helper's instincts, gradually manipulating them over years, while maintaining the illusion of being the misunderstood victim. The fourth trait is a tendency to give others the benefit of the doubt, even when evidence suggests otherwise. They prefer to see the best in people, rationalizing harmful actions as consequences of trauma, pain, or difficult circumstances. Their capacity to justify the unjustifiable reflects hope in humanity but also leaves them exposed far longer than is healthy, while less empathetic individuals quickly recognize destructive patterns and distance themselves. More sensitive people often persist in seeking explanations and solutions, allowing harmful behavior to continue and even escalate. Jung observed that when four specific traits, sensitivity, responsibility, compassion, and hope, are not consciously integrated, they form a psychological profile that manipulative individuals can easily detect and exploit. It's as if these people emit an invisible signal: I can be manipulated. I will take the blame. I will try to save you. I will offer endless chances. Skilled emotional predators develop an almost instinctive ability to identify this signal. However, it's important to note that none of these traits is inherently negative. Sensitivity, responsibility, compassion, and hope are strengths that enable genuine love, meaningful relationships, and significant contributions to the world. The challenge arises when these qualities lack conscious shadow integration, which would allow them to be expressed with discernment and self-protection. When someone develops what Jung called an integrated shadow, they retain these positive traits, but gain the ability to recognize and respond appropriately to malevolence. Sensitivity becomes discernment. Compassion is paired with healthy boundaries. Hope is balanced with wisdom rather than cynicism. This conscious shadow integration equips a person to confront harmful behavior in a way that both protects and strengthens them. Jung outlined specific steps for this integration, derived from decades of clinical observation and self-analysis. The first step is recognizing projected shadow, learning to identify when you are facing true malevolence, rather than simply dealing with your own reactivity. Manipulative individuals excel at confusing their victims, making them question their perceptions, morality, and even sanity. They project their own destructive tendencies onto others, generating guilt and responsibility for conflicts they didn't create. Jung termed this process shadow projection. Conscious recognition of shadow projection is liberating because it allows a person to stop internalizing responsibility for problems that are not theirs. If someone consistently treats you cruelly or manipulatively, and you constantly question your own actions or seek to fix the situation, you may be experiencing shadow projection. Jung emphasized that the key to breaking this cycle is what he called the withdrawal of projection. This involves deliberately refusing to absorb the negative projections others place on you. It requires clarity about your own motives and behaviors, while recognizing that another person's cruelty is their choice, not a reflection of your actions. To do this, one must cultivate what Jung called the internal observer, the aspect of the psyche, capable of observing situations and interactions, with enough emotional detachment to detect patterns that remain hidden when fully immersed in emotions. Developing this capacity is essential, as it allows you to maintain perspective even in highly charged situations. The internal observer asks questions like, what is truly happening here? What behavior patterns are emerging? Is this person taking responsibility or constantly shifting blame? Are there real signs of growth or just excuses and empty promises? Do I feel valued and energized after interacting with them, or drained and doubting myself? The next step, which Jung termed ego strengthening through conscious shadow integration, may seem counterintuitive. To respond effectively to external harm, you must first acknowledge and integrate your own potential for destructive behavior. Every human carries the capacity for both good and evil. The difference between ethical and malevolent people is not the absence of destructive impulses, but the conscious decision to act differently, denying your own shadow completely, seeing yourself as purely good and incapable of negative impulses, leaves you vulnerable to those who have accepted their darker side. Jung noted that people who never acknowledge their capacity for cruelty often feel paralyzed when faced with real evil, because they cannot anticipate behaviors they refuse to recognize in themselves. They may also misjudge others, projecting their own morality onto individuals who operate by different principles. Integrating the shadow does not mean acting destructively. It means recognizing impulses like anger, revenge, cruelty, or manipulation, but consciously choosing not to act on them. By doing so, you develop what Jung called the discriminative function, the ability to identify these tendencies in others and respond appropriately. Someone with an integrated shadow is not shocked by evil. They understand it as a potential in human nature. They neither deny it nor allow it to paralyze them. Instead, they face it consciously and make decisions aligned with their values rather than automatic emotional reactions. The third step involves what Jung termed an active ethical response. This goes beyond mere self-protection and requires taking a conscious stand against wrongdoing in a way that reflects your core values. It doesn't necessarily mean confronting harmful individuals directly, as that is not always safe or effective. Instead, it's about refusing to be complicit in evil through passivity, denial, or unconscious participation. Active ethical response can manifest in various ways. It might involve setting clear, non-negotiable boundaries, refusing to engage in harmful dynamics even at the cost of temporary social isolation, documenting abusive behavior for protection, seeking assistance from appropriate authorities when needed, or simply removing yourself from unchangeable situations. What distinguishes this response is that it stems from conscious choice grounded in defined values, not from instinctive emotional reactions. Jung noted that responding to evil from a place of integrity, rather than reacting out of fear or past wounds, carries transformative potential for both the individual and the situation. This approach is sustainable over the long term, as actions rooted in consciously chosen values do not lead to emotional burnout. Instead, they reflect a deliberate expression of who you aim to be, even under challenging circumstances. The fourth step is arguably the most demanding: finding transformative meaning in encounters with evil. Jung believed that every human experience, including the most painful, holds potential for growth and increased awareness. This does not diminish the suffering caused by wrongdoing or suggest that victims should feel grateful for trauma. Rather, it recognizes that even destructive experiences can teach wisdom and strength. Finding transformative meaning requires shifting the question from "Why did this happen to me?" to "What can I learn about human nature, my inner strength, and my true worth through this experience?" This perspective moves one from a victim mindset to that of a conscious learner of life. Jung observed that those capable of finding such meaning often cultivate exceptional compassion, wisdom, and resilience. They do not become cynical. Instead, they develop a mature hope that acknowledges evil but trusts in the possibility of good. These individuals can assist others in similar circumstances, transforming their own suffering into a source of healing for others. While this process does not erase the original pain, it frames it within a larger story of personal growth and contribution to the greater good. Experiences with evil, then, can become painful yet necessary initiations into deeper aspects of human existence. The fifth and final step is discriminative compassion, which synthesizes the previous stages. This involves maintaining an open heart without naivety, offering support without becoming vulnerable to harm, and loving without losing discernment. Discriminative compassion acknowledges that people are at different stages of moral or psychological development. Some struggle with harmful patterns, yet possess the capacity and willingness to change. Some individuals consciously choose paths that bring harm and show little interest in personal growth or responsibility. Discriminative compassion enables us to differentiate between those who are open to growth and those who are not, responding appropriately to each. With individuals open to growth, this kind of compassion may involve patience, guidance, and opportunities for development, but always within clear boundaries that safeguard your own well-being. For those who remain harmful, discriminative compassion might require firm boundaries, appropriate consequences, or even complete distancing to protect the community. Jung recognized that cultivating discriminative compassion is a sign of true spiritual and psychological maturity. Being compassionate is easy when it costs nothing. Setting boundaries is simple when you feel indifferent. The real challenge lies in maintaining both an open heart and healthy limits, loving without allowing harm, being kind without being naive. This demands consciously integrating seemingly contradictory aspects of human nature. People who develop this skill become genuine agents of healing. They break cycles of harm by responding to wrongdoing with wisdom rather than reacting with more negativity. They preserve their personal agency, avoiding the trap of permanent victimhood, and confront difficult realities with courage rather than denial. Learning to respond effectively to evil is a long and often painful journey with no shortcuts. Yet according to Jung, those willing to undertake this work not only protect themselves from future harm, but cultivate character traits that enhance every area of their lives. Responding to wrongdoing with integrity builds a strength that does not depend on external circumstances. It fosters confidence in your ability to uphold your values, even under pressure, and reveals that your goodness is a conscious choice, independent of others' behavior. This realization is liberating. Your inner peace, self-worth, and ability to contribute positively to the world cannot be undermined by the actions of others. True freedom from others' harmful behaviors comes not from avoidance, but from developing the inner resources to navigate challenges without losing your essence. Jung argued that this personal development is vital not just for individual well-being, but for the evolution of collective human consciousness. Every person who learns to respond to harm with wisdom, rather than perpetuating destructive patterns, contributes to a world where malevolent behavior holds less influence. If you followed this far, you may have recognized elements of your own experiences. Perhaps you've seen patterns that make some individuals recurring targets of harm, or noticed unhelpful reactions in yourself. Or maybe you feel hope realizing there is a more constructive way to face these challenges. The path Jung outlined is demanding but profoundly rewarding. It calls for courage to confront uncomfortable truths about yourself and human nature, patience to cultivate new responses that initially feel unnatural, and faith that personal integrity can be maintained even when others fail to do so. The effort pays off. Mastering the ability to respond to wrongdoing without being corrupted by it opens a freedom-few experience. You can love deeply without paralyzing fear, offer genuine help without risking exploitation, and sustain hope in human goodness while acknowledging the reality of human evil. Perhaps most importantly, you become a living example that strength can emerge from adversity, wisdom from pain, and compassion from suffering. Your life serves as proof that, while evil is real and destructive, it does not have the final say over humanity's potential for growth, goodness, and meaningful impact. Carl Jung taught us that the darkest experiences often hold the most valuable lessons, but only if we face them consciously rather than letting them control us. The evil you encountered was not random. It acted as a difficult but essential initiation, guiding you toward deeper wisdom and compassion that you otherwise couldn't have accessed. The only true response to evil is cultivating a form of goodness that is realistic, compassion that is resilient, and strength that is ethical. This growth doesn't happen despite destructive encounters, but through how you choose to respond to them. While you can't prevent evil from appearing in the world, you can control your response. Repeated consciously, this choice shapes not only your life, but also the lives of everyone your decisions touch. If this video resonated with your experience or revealed truths about your journey, leave a comment with the phrase, "I choose to respond with wisdom." This shows that the message has reached you and that you understand the only real way to overcome evil is by refusing to be defined by it. Transformation, as Jung described, doesn't happen instantly. It's a continuous process of conscious choices, honest reflection, and gradual growth. Each step brings you closer to a life that is powerful yet compassionate, strong yet gentle, wise yet loving. And this way of being isn't just your personal reward, it's a gift to the world. To support your journey further, I've created 2 resources for conscious growth and inner strength. The first is 21 Days of Transformation with Carl Jung, a complete guide to the techniques Jung developed to integrate the shadow, strengthen the ego, and cultivate discerning compassion. The second is the Soul Survival Manual, designed for dealing with genuinely harmful people, providing practical tools to maintain your sanity, shield yourself from negativity, and navigate destructive situations while preserving dignity and strength. You can find the link in the first pinned comment. Thank you for staying until the end, for confronting challenging aspects of human nature, and for choosing growth over mere survival. The world needs individuals like you, those who respond to darkness not with naivety, but with conscious wisdom. See you in the next video.